All right, we are recording now. Hi, Fue. Welcome to the show. How are you
Hello.
doing?
Good, good. It has been a lazy weekend. I've
Mm.
been lazing around, not doing much stuff.
What do you mean? Why leasing? You're supposed
Oh,
to do what?
because I think last week I was assigned to a rush penetration testing. So I mean the whole project is quite rush. So I only got like maybe 2 or 3 days to do one testing for a very huge application itself. So
Mm.
yeah, I cannot. I mean, as in, I tried all the very common test cases, things like that, to ensure that the basic securities are there. So a lot of things to do, so I keep OTing. Then
Oh, wow.
yeah, that's
Mm.
why I took the weekend to just rest.
Okay. Okay. So for people who don't know, Fue, or also known as Jerry, is a cybersecurity consultant for a number of years, about 4 or 5 years already, maybe even more. And he is very enthusiastic about the IT industry in the field. He has been, I understand you have been doing this IT thing for since you were secondary school or even before that. I think the last time I remember you were uh, jailbreaking iPhones. I think
That
yeah,
was
yeah, that was a
ages
very
ago.
long time ago. Yeah, so then I think that was when I knew that you are very interested lah, like this kind of tech stuff. So can you bring me back when you first started being passionate in this industry? Like when do you start playing with the IT or all this phone stuff?
Oh, this one I don't recall how young I was.
Mm,
Then during that time, right, I was actually when I was young, I was watching some movies, things like that, like Matrix, things like that. IT actually caught my attention itself, so I've been
mm,
considering IT as a career field to expand in the future. But then it really drive down to me when I was like playing Maple Story, things like that, right? So because that time Maple Story got private server, things like that. Yeah, so I decided to just download some tools online, like some packet editor, network packet editor. So last
mm.
time the network packet editor is very, very troublesome to read and things like that. Then after
Mm.
that, got one time I decided to drop like an item or some mesos. I cannot remember properly. Yeah, then after that I changed one hex or something, right? I changed one
Yep.
field inside the network packet itself. Then it suddenly dropped me a 2 billion mesos. So I keep exploiting that one. So I become the richest man inside the private server.
Wait, okay, I don't understand how so you manage. I mean, I don't understand how the specific hacking itself work lah. But
Yeah.
because of this, was it random by chance? You just play around maybe some code and then you realize, oh, I can exploit this. And you just started using it.
Uh, yeah, it was actually like me trying to just monitor the traffic, things like that. So when I dropped the item, right, I saw this
Mm,
packet that is going towards the server itself.
mm,
So I thought I can just change some field, things like that, to play around with it. So I played
mm.
around with it. Then I managed to, I think by chance or by luck itself, I managed to change maybe a few mesos to a 2 billion mesos. Then I
Wow.
just take it. I keep exploiting it then to just purchase more items. But
Mm.
yeah, but the whole private server wasn't a lot of people, so I did actually tell the game masters that time, but they didn't do anything. So it's for me to
Oh, okay.
exploit.
So it's
Yeah.
okay lah. I think it's still fine to exploit. I already told them they didn't do anything about it. So okay, speaking of cybersecurity, um, I'm not sure if the password, the password itself, password 123, is it one of the most common password? And if it is it a good password? Password
Uh,
123.
there's a lot of how to say articles, things like that about the passwords in the whole IT industry itself. So password one
Yep.
two three itself is actually the top, if I'm not wrong, is the top 20 common password
Mm,
itself. So what do we mean by common password? If how to say an attacker, right, they will collate all these statistics. So like for example, password itself is a very common password. Then they'll create this whole we call it as a word list itself. So we have this password, then password 123 itself. Then after that we can automate the whole thing to actually try to brute force or do a dictionary attack on your account to see if this password actually works to unlock your account itself. That's why if you actually use like common password, things like that, then it's actually not a very good way to secure your account, because people can actually try to guess your password, things like that, to enter your account. So then that will lead to your account takeover, then maybe money loss, information loss, things like that. Yeah. So
I see.
it's pretty
So
bad.
is it like if you, because from what you have studied or researched, password is a common word that people use in their password. So from that understanding, you use that word, maybe with some adjustment as well, maybe 123 or 321, and then using an algorithm. Then from there, you try to hack that person's account because you know that those are the common figures or words that people use. So if
Yeah.
they use it, so it's more easier for them to hack.
Yes, indeed. So in password guessing or generating word lists for this kind of common passwords, we actually will determine like what's the personal data of that person. For example, you, I will see, I will try to create password surrounding your name, your birthday, your phone number, things like that. Then after that, I will try out common password also, like password 123 or password itself, or 1234566. Then I'll generate a list itself. It can be like 10, 30 passwords itself. Then I'll try to guess your username. Then I'll try to loop the password list itself so that I can try to hack your account. So, but hacking account itself, right, is like a more tedious, how to say, it's actually quite a tedious work itself. Unless, I mean, if the person use a strong password, then that will take ages to crack itself. That's why I feel that if you're talking about passwords, right, to create a good password, you actually need like numeric, alphanumeric itself, uppercase, lowercase, and a symbol itself. So this 5 combination will create a good password. Of course, the length also matter, because now our GPU, our graphic cards are actually getting very, very powerful. So that, for example, my graphic card itself can crack maybe a 6-digit pin like in maybe less than 10 minutes or 1 hour itself. Yeah, so it's best the length to keep it like around 12 characters to around 16 characters itself. But then recently they also changed the password policy. Like every 3 months you need to change one time, things like that. So to ensure that the password are updated and not crackable itself.
I see. Um, is there any password that you will recommend then? Is it, I heard some security guy saying if you want to use a password, use a very random phrase like maybe Lee Kuan Yew. I love Lee Kuan Yew because he's fat. Like something super random lah, like so that that the hackers won't be able to hack because it's so random.
Personally, I will feel, right, if a person wants a good password itself, right, they need to craft out a certain pattern. So the words or the characters, things like that, doesn't really matter. They just remember the pattern itself. Then after that, they will be able to like remember the password. So they can just put a random things. Yeah. So it doesn't really matter to them like what the password is or what the phrase is. Then the phrases, as mentioned, it can be like a random one, totally not related to you, things like that. Yeah, so but if you saying like you put color, things like that, or and people know your favorite color, they might also use it as a to generate some password around your colors also, like maybe blue, then blue one, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of our usage of internet and the password, if we use our internet, does it mean that we have no privacy at all? Because I mean, to say that if we use internet, does it mean that we have no privacy? Because we
Mm-hmm.
are exposing ourselves, we are leaving traces in the internet.
It depends on how you actually use it itself. So privacy can be a lot of forms itself. So now the government itself is looking at the personal data protection, which is your personal information, things like that. They value that as the topmost data protection scheme itself. Like they have this thing called a PDPA, which is your Personal Data Protection Act itself. So this will help regulate the companies to ensure there's a minimum, so-called a standard, a baseline of protection towards your data itself. Then as for the privacy, as in where are you, things like that, your location, things like it depends on the services that you use. So if you don't want to use things like maybe Google services, things like that, then yeah, your data will not be collected by Google itself.
Yeah.
But recently, I think they've been regulating all this stuff to actually make it more strict, to actually allow people to delete their data, things like that. But delete to a certain extent only. They won't be able to wipe out the whole thing because due to some other law and regulation, things like that. So for example, you make a payment, things like that, right? All those data cannot be deleted. Your name, address, things like that, it might be still with them. Yeah, depending on the regulation, the law by itself also. So come back to the privacy itself, I would think to a certain extent that they might not have their own privacy, so people might able to access, especially companies. Yeah.
So you spoke of our laws about the personal data protection in Singapore. I was wondering what the laws that other countries have compared to Singapore. Are there some countries that have more stringent laws when it comes to personal data compared to Singapore? Because when I see Singapore, every time there's a data leak, right, the consequences for them is just pay fines, like what 200,000, which is not a lot there for a company. I feel like it's just like smack on the hand. Okay, don't do this again. But it's like 200,000 is nothing for a big company. So I was wondering if let's say, maybe got two questions here. So are there other countries that are more stringent in terms of their laws? And the second one is, if let's say my data got leaked and somehow I can prove that this company, let's say Shopee leaked my info because of they didn't do enough to protect my data. Can I sue them or not? Like Shopee itself? Because we have the terms and conditions, right? Say, you will not use my data for all this, yada yada yada, you keep it safe. And it got leaked. And somehow I got some evidence that Shopee has leaked my information. So so basically two questions. One is, can I sue Shopee? And the other one is, are there any other countries which have more stringent laws? Yeah.
So in Europe, there's one act also is called the GDPR, I think. GDPR. Yeah, the GDPR is the General Data Protection Regulation. So it's thankfully protecting all these private, all the personal information, things like that. So based on that, right, itself is actually slightly more stringent than the PDPA itself. I mean, the fine, things like that, if I'm not wrong, is more than the PDPA itself. But however, the PDPA is following the GDPR. So now they slowly increasing the fine by itself. Because there's also some talks saying that what for a company needs to pay for like so much expense on cybersecurity itself, like doing penetration testing, things like that. But then end up when got data leak, they only need to pay that small amount of fine. So let's say you engage a cybersecurity consultant or things like that, right? You might charge them maybe 150K, or then if they get data leak, then to them they just need to pay like maybe 200K or maybe less than 200K fine, things like that. It's not a lot to them also. So yeah, then they are talking about all this, but the PDPA, if I'm not wrong, they are now stepping up their game itself to actually increase the fine. So I think recently they increased to, I think, 1 million or at least 10% of their net revenue, if I'm not wrong, the turnover rate for their revenue. Yeah. Then in your case, like as you mentioned about Shopee itself, right? If you potentially found evidence that it got leaked itself, and the terms and conditions says that it will not maybe send to this particular third party itself, right? Then you may actually engage a lawyer to actually go consult them, or you can take a simple route to actually consult their data protection officer, because every company with personal data, right, needs to have a data protection officer. They need to give you, how they say, a reasoning or official document to state why your data has been leaked out, things like that. Yeah, so you can contact them to ask about all this stuff also.
I see. But I think these are corporations, they'll find some way to not pay their fines or some way to cover their ass on us. So even if I go to the officer, I would think they'll try to think, oh, it's not our fault, it's not our fault. I don't know lah. I would think I will be quite skeptical about it lah. They will maybe give like some $50 Shopee voucher. Okay, here you go. So shut up. You don't go and disturb us really. But I don't know lah. Maybe they'll do something different. So, but quite skeptical of these companies who actually step up to do something. So maybe there's really something that is not really their fault. But with all these fines with being so lenient, I a bit skeptical of it lah. So, but I hope things get better for Singapore. The companies be a bit more stringent and the fines become a bit more to.
Yeah, but the MAS itself, right, which is guarding the financial sector itself, right, is getting their guidelines getting more stringent by itself. So they want every they want every software that is going out to internet facing things like that, right, to have it conduct a security assessment on it, like a penetration testing, things like that, to actually to secure the web application by itself, so that it will not be vulnerable to like malicious actor, things like that, to come and attack. So this kind of safeguarding also helps to protect the data itself.
Okay. So good to hear lah. I think at least there are some measures or improvements being done to increase the cybersecurity of these companies and the government as well. Speaking of, if government they got leaked, then they find themselves a bit weird. Do you know? If you don't know, never mind, because I'm thinking out loud.
This one I'm not very sure about it, but the PDPA is act as a committee by itself. So any registered entity itself, I think even government itself cannot run away from it. But then, as you say, government need to pay the PDPA, which is also part of them.
Yeah. So.
But it's PDPA by itself. If I'm not wrong, the committee is standalone one.
Yeah. Okay. I see. So we talk about security, and I think there are a lot of people, especially me, we don't really study about IT, don't know much about IT apart from using our phones. Then in terms of security, we know it's important, but we just shrug it off because we think the companies will help us protect us. So are there any simple ways that normal people who don't have any IT background can increase their internet security while still maintaining usability and convenience when they are browsing the internet?
So one of it is, I mean, I can list down a few things, like when you going to a website, things like that, right? Know that the website is trusted itself. So for example, google.com, there's recently there's also people writing article where they can make the URL almost exactly like google.com. Visually, you cannot actually see it. So best case scenario for this kind of thing, right, is to type it out yourself, google.com itself, rather than going to a search engine, things like that. But if you searching for like very popular sites, like maybe YouTube, things like that on Google, right, the first link normally is the correct one. But all these, if you search like like those very less known companies or things like that, right, then you have to double check whether if the website is legitimate or not, because sometimes they might play with the search engine optimization, things like that, to actually grab the first place. Then you will not know whether that is malicious website or not. So based on that, right, you can actually, sometimes you can actually go in. If you already went in, then you can go in and see the certificate. So the certificate, you can actually view the certificate, right, to see whether who is it being issued to. So you can actually see if it's issued to apple.com, things like that. Then if you see if being issued to some other people, then that will be a bit suspicious already. Then you should exit the web application itself to not key in any password or user account inside.
Mm.
Yeah, then in terms of password, I mean, safeguarding password must be strong, as we mentioned just now also. Yeah, then for outside wise, right, shouldn't actually use their free public Wi-Fi. Yeah, because in terms of when I was in school, I actually learned a couple of ways as a ethical hacker how to actually create maybe we call it as a evil twin itself. So this evil twin means that I bring a portable Wi-Fi out. Then after that, I name it exactly as maybe like Starbucks itself. So I can name it as free Starbucks. Then I create exactly the same thing. But then when they go in, right, to my Wi-Fi, right, I can actually track all their network packets itself. So I can actually monitor what they do, things like that, or maybe what kind of data they have. Yeah. So this kind of technique is quite widely known to the attackers out there in the world itself. So if you use free Wi-Fi, it's best for you to actually like maybe use an VPN itself to actually encrypt your data itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are multiple things here. So the first one was the website, whether it's legitimate or not. So in the first place, when you Google, let's say something very simple, maybe hand sanitizer, and then this company, when you Google it, the first page of the Google, it will have some hand sanitizer page. They sell maybe some health products and sanitary products. So usually I would think the first page of Google is mostly legitimate one. Maybe the second page of Google as well. After the fifth page, I will a bit like, I don't even go to second page of Google anyway. Usually if second page, it's very rare that I will use. I don't know if other people will actually use second page of Google. So do you think Google will do their part, or any search browser like Bing, they'll do their part to ensure the first page of whatever they are showing is legitimate? Because all of these fake websites or malicious website, I would think it's because of phishing. Like they give you some email, then you press on the link, then it will look like a legitimate website. So yeah, so two questions here. The first one, Google, will they filter out all the bad websites? Try to ensure that it's not on the first page of their web results. Then the second is, do all the malicious links or websites, do they come mostly from phishing emails?
The first one for the Google itself, right?
Yep.
I'm not very sure about how the Google policy works itself. But then if you want to play with the search engine itself, right, you need to optimize your website. So anyone in the world can optimize their website to actually to be as optimized as possible to be at the first page itself. So Google might not have the full capabilities to actually protect this kind of things itself. So because as you mentioned, phishing website itself, in terms to program it out to actually to detect it, is actually quite hard. That's why they are trying to deploy maybe AI, things like that, to actually to detect whether is it a phishing website, things like that. But then to this kind of certain extent, right, it might not be 100%. So they cannot actually like maybe a legitimate one actually trying to optimize, but then their system detect it as a a phishing website, then they kick them all the way to the bottom. Then that would be very unfair to the owner itself. So this is my own personal thinking that but I'm not very sure about how Google works itself, the search engine. So yeah, so I think the optimization anyone can do it itself. So when you just create a website, right, you can just optimize it all the way to the max itself. Then try to fight for the first page. Then Google, maybe if they got some security system to block it right off, right, but it will not be immediate itself. Yeah, so it might be possible that all these phishing websites to be appear at the first one, but it's very, very rare for those like common words, things like that. Yeah.
So it's possible that even if it appears on the first page of Google or whatever you're searching, it can, one of them can still be malicious.
Yeah.
Is that true? Okay.
Yes. Right.
Okay. Wow. But so you mentioned you have to check the website. for certificate. Personally speaking, I don't know where to check. I mean, I could check their Facebook group, their Instagram. Maybe that's one of them to check whether they're legitimate or not. Lah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I will do, I think. Apart from
So
that, yeah, maybe you have something.
for that, right, actually the browser itself have tried to simplify things for the user itself. So on the top, at the URL box itself, right, at the side, there's this log itself. Normally, you will say connection is secure. Yeah. So
Okay.
this kind of browser will actually help you detect this kind of thing. Then you see a cancel, things like that. That means the website is kind of fishy already.
Wait. So, yeah, sometimes I went to some websites, they'll say they'll have some, I think it's Google. Google will tell me they'll have some X, then say this website might be trying to steal your credit card information. Is it something like that?
Yeah, it's something like that. So the browser
Okay.
is trying to help the user to increase their security awareness, things like that. But they cannot
Okay.
block it off is because we are the user itself. So if we want to access this site, we must access this site. And there's no third party to actually tell us to you cannot, things like that. Then that will be so restrictive. Yeah.
Okay lah. Okay. I think that's at least there's something that they already warned you, so have to be careful before you put your credit card information. So I think that's something like at least.
Yeah. I mean, for credit card information, all this, it's best to double check whether is it the correct website, legitimate website, things like that. Because like for example, Facebook, a lot of people post advertisements saying that they purchase this product and it's very, very good. Sometimes people might fall for it also. Yeah. And nowadays the phishing itself, right, is so legitimate until like you cannot find a flaw at all. Yeah. Like the time I saw a LinkedIn post by itself, right? Someone actually created another domain. It's also apple.com, but then this time the L itself is the difference. That's why when they register for the domain itself, they allowed them to
It's
get
a capital I, is it? That's why the
it
Apple.
could be a capital I, but another thing is that they could use another wording for it. Like in terms of computer, we got like different encoding, things like that. So they might be using another encoding to display that particular letter.
So the actual link itself is not apple.com, but it shows apple.com. So it looks legitimate.
Yeah. So the L itself is very, very close to an actual L, their L.
Okay.
So it's very, very hard to know it.
Then how like that? Because it's not just as this. I remember there are some cases where I think Lazada messaged me saying, if you have bought this item, please, or if you have not bought this item, please click on the link, something like that. Or OCBC, it looks very legitimate. Then for me, I don't even know if it's true or not. Then I'll be so lazy to even go and check, go and call up the people and check if this is real or not. Personally, I'll just ignore lah. But you can't tell. Maybe they look so legitimate, yeah. Then how do I even? I think the best way is to just check. I mean, but there
Yeah.
are some points like what you mentioned, the apple.com. How do I even tell?
That one for me personally, right? I'll just maybe copy the link itself. Then I'll do a Google search on the link, not entering the website.
Okay.
Yeah. Then maybe if the link is too long, I'll just copy the domain name itself or just the name itself, like maybe Apple. Then I'll go Google to see whether is it really Apple or not. Then from there I'll just click. Yeah. So because sometimes Google will show you like, are you searching for this maybe Apple or maybe things like that if you got like a misspelled word inside your search. Yeah, you get what I mean?
You mean is it like you copy and paste and then the Google will sometimes says it does not exist or maybe you misspelled wrong. Is it something like that?
Normally you will say it misspelled wrong. So
They'll give you the real one instead.
They will ask you, are you searching for this particular word? Things like that. Yeah. So from there, maybe you can see whether is it legit Apple or maybe it's not. That's my own personal way of doing it to actually verify. But the moment I see if got banks come and contact me, maybe, oh, you got a 2,000 loan on stock, things like that, I'll just delete already, because 100% bank will not come and contact me with this kind of things. And
What would they do? Actually, they'll call you instead, right? Instead of messaging.
yeah, normally they'll call you, or if not, if I'm not wrong, they'll actually send a letter, things like that.
A
Yeah,
letter.
maybe to
Okay.
ask you to come down to the bank to resolve it, things like that.
Okay. Okay. But yeah, even call also a bit weird, because now the scammers are on the calls as well.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's a very weird.
but also very hard to verify. Let's say you got a maybe a OCBC domain, things like that. But then
Yep.
you're not very sure whether the domain is actually sent from a OCBC. Then you call in, right?
Oh yeah, I remember they come out with the DBS website. Then they ask you to log in, but that's
Yeah.
not a DBS website. I remember. Yeah, I remember this.
Yeah, so all this very, very hard to differentiate. At the same time also, if you actually call into a bank to verify, right, to check whether maybe these are legitimate or not, they might not know also, because bank, the whole structure of the organization is too huge. The customer service officer might not know everything. So let's say you drop a call to this number itself, right? Or maybe this number call you saying they are from OCBC. Then you call the actual OCBC to check, right? They don't even know whether is it theirs or not.
I
Yeah.
see. Wow, these scammers and hackers are really on their game. Yeah, I think best to just use the app version lah. I would think the app is probably the most safe. Like
Mm.
from the App Store or Google Play Store,
Oh,
because yeah,
recently,
the huh?
recently got a fake Google Play Store.
Huh? Wait, how? What happened?
I'm not very sure about it, but I saw like the headlines of it. Like someone actually downloaded the wrong Google. Then that Google is actually a malware by itself.
You mean from Google Play?
I'm not
You
very sure why he need to reinstall Google Play itself, but yeah, the whole thing was damn funny. I read the title only. I didn't click into the article, but it's quite funny.
how do you reinstall Google Play if you uninstall Google Play? That's a good question. I don't know. So, because you uninstall already, right? Okay.
It might be like they're using some other phones that is not under Google services, but
Like
like
what
I
Huawei?
think yeah, I think Huawei.
Hmm.
So from
Okay.
them, then they need to install Google Play, things like that. But I'm not very sure if it's supported or not.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Speaking of Android and iOS, is iOS or Apple, are they safer in terms of security because they like to brand themselves as privacy oriented, like they care a lot about their customers' privacy.
Yeah. How to say okay, in terms of Android and iOS, right? The
Yep.
two difference is that iOS is a software owned by Apple itself, but then
Okay.
Android is an open source where everyone actually can go in and make modification, things like that, towards their own needs.
Hmm.
Yeah, so in terms of open source software like Android, right, things like that, people can actually read the codes. So from then on, right, they actually can create maybe how to say they can create an exploit, things like that to more easily because everything
Hmm.
is given to them. But then as for Apple itself,
Hmm.
it's sole proprietor is Apple, so that everything, all their software is built in-house. So no one
Okay.
actually knows uh, outside of Apple, no one actually knows how the code works, things like that. They need to do something called reverse engineering to
Hmm.
actually try to understand how the whole software works.
Okay.
Then from there, create the exploit itself. So
Hmm.
both are actually susceptible to hacking. I mean, like
Hmm.
exploit things like that.
Yep.
Then, but then Apple will be slightly difficult. Not saying that
Hmm.
it's not possible, but slightly difficult. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Because uh because Android is open source, anyone can see what's going on in terms of the code. As for Apple, they only I guess the staff can only see it, even the customers cannot see it.
yeah, the customer cannot see it because
Okay, so
it's
then because it's internal lah,
yeah.
then why then what's the advantage of being open source then?
That's Being open source itself, right, means that you can have contributors around the world itself, like developers, things like that, to actually come and work on your project. So maybe they might, for example, you create a baseline of 1.0, this code itself. Then after that, they might upgrade it to maybe adding more features or optimize it better. Because if you got like, for example, you hire a team itself, right, the coder itself, they might create their best, but then someone else might be better than them in certain areas like optimization of search, things like that. Then they can implement their own stuff inside. Yeah, that's the benefits of open source. So everyone can contribute their ideas.
I
And
see.
in terms of open source, anyone also can use your software. So people can actually take this software to build their underlying foundation. Use it like maybe Android, use it as an underlying, then it created Samsung, things like that. Samsung
Okay.
phones.
I see. Okay. So because they are open source, anyone can come and work on or create new, I don't know, maybe applications, things like
Yeah.
that. So because it's open, they are vulnerable to attacks. But because of the openness, they also can help contribute and make it better.
Yes. It's like a dual-edged sword.
Okay, I see. Well, in that case, that means Apple's staff must be very, very competent. I would think, because in terms of my usage for iOS, I would think it's very similar. I mean, I don't see any feature of iOS or compared to Android that is superior. So if you give me a iPhone to use in terms of the usage, Apple the apps lah, compared to Android, it's quite comparable. It's not like I will lose out if I use iOS. So I would think Apple has the advantage of both security and also innovation. I don't know, will you consider innovation? So, well, in that way, I thought just sounding like this, Apple quite strong.
Yeah, but in terms of that, right, because there's another thing called the security by obfuscation, so that but then in terms of this, Apple is actually encrypting all their how to say their source code. So in terms of iOS, their source code are all encrypted. So people will not be able to read it. That's why it's not saying that it's 100% secure, but just that it will delay the attackers from creating an exploit, things like that. So it's slightly more secure. It's not saying that it's not hackable, things like that.
I see. Okay. To increase, to put more measures to increase the security of my usage on the internet, how does the VPN help with the security? Can you explain to me?
So let's say you connect to unknown Wi-Fi or things like
Yep.
that, but then you now want to use a VPN, which is a virtual private network itself. So your machine will then connect to, for example, another machine, which is the VPN server.
Yep.
Then you create this layer of tunnel. So the moment when you want to send a data out, right, your machine will then encrypt it. Then after that, this will then be sent to the VPN server. Then that VPN server will then send out to the actual server itself. So there's a layer of encryption, so that no one can actually so-called read the data, things like that, even though you are connected to like a free Wi-Fi things. But then normally in terms of just now I mentioned like the evil twin itself, I create another Wi-Fi. Then I ask people to connect towards it. But you know, free Wi-Fi, when you connect to it, right, you need to log into a certain account, things like that. Like
Sometimes, yeah.
they will pop out like a web page, then tell you to log in. Yeah,
Yeah.
those, if I'm not wrong, those kind of called oh shit, I forgot. I forgot
It's
the
okay.
name
We
itself.
can
So,
explain the mechanism, how it works.
yeah, you need to log in itself. Then in order for them to issue, I mean, like open the internet access for you. So attacker will leverage on that mainly to gain your account.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
because
the continue.
when you're reading network packets, right, it might be a lot. It will be very, very tedious for attacker to actually read it, but not saying that it's not possible to read it. It is possible to read it, yeah. But in terms of getting the account and credentials, things like that, right, is the priority. if I were to go out to create this kind of stuff, yeah, I'll get the password and username. Yeah, then I can like maybe create a page for you. In order for you to use, then you need to log in your Facebook account, your Google account, things like that. It might not be like the company stuff. Like Starbucks have their own website to log in, things like that.
Yeah.
But this one might just use Facebook or anything. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So the VPN acts a bit like a filter. So let's say I log into Facebook. Let's say I connect to a Wi-Fi first, a free Wi-Fi, and then I use a VPN. So let's say then after I connect to the free Wi-Fi and the VPN, let's say I log into Facebook. So I go through the filter, which is the VPN, to send the details to the website, which is Facebook. But the free Wi-Fi itself, they can still hack onto me, but they need to go through another layer of security via the VPN.
Yeah, but that way of entering, right, it might not be very wise for them because it's encrypted with like maybe depending on the VPN service provider, it might be a very strong encryption algorithm. Yeah, so they might not be able to get through. If they might be able to get through, they might take years to just get that particular thing itself. So how to say free Wi-Fi, right? When you connect to it, right, they'll come out. Normally, you'll come out with a login portal. So if you haven't connected to your VPN, right, and you use the login portal, right, let's say you connect to evil Wi-Fi. Yeah, then your account might be leaked itself. So let's say if the Wi-Fi don't have any login portal before the VPN login, then you log in your VPN, then you maybe communicate with a server, things like that. Then your data will be encrypted.
Wait, so you need to log in through, enable your VPN first before you connect with the Wi-Fi, the free Wi-Fi, is it? Or does it matter if you do it? Which one you do it first?
Just the moment you got internet access, right, you need to use VPN already. So, but in terms of like free Wi-Fi, right, best for you to don't enter anything when they prompt you. Yeah, if they prompt you, maybe you enter a fake email, things like that. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Is there a difference between paid and free Wi-Fi? Because I know got some VPN you need to pay, some are free.
Oh, the VPN paid VPN.
Yeah, compared to a free one like you download on the App Store.
They might be using a more robust algorithm in terms of like encryption, things like that. Yeah, so I think that one, and also normally they throttle down the free one. So like maybe free one you only can use 500 MB.
So it'll be slower lah.
Yes, it'll be way slower.
So you got use VPN right now at home?
No, at home is my only internet. Why would I need?
So outside, when you use free Wi-Fi, then you'll enable your VPN.
Yeah, but normally I don't connect to any Wi-Fi. I just use my mobile hotspot. Yeah, because now the hotspot plan are like crazy. It's like maybe 50 GB or 80 GB. Those kind of data you might not use finish within a month. Yeah, so but still the same thing. You shouldn't connect to any free Wi-Fi unless it's verified by the by the counter, things like that. And you must check the Wi-Fi name also. Is it matching the maybe because sometimes when you buy a drink, right, downstairs they got like the Wi-Fi name and the Wi-Fi password. Yeah, you must actually verify whether is it the correct one or not.
Crap.
There's a lot of things. That's why security is a very troublesome thing. Yeah,
very mafan.
A lot of things in cybersecurity world. We got like the governance, things like that to ensure there's a good balance between like ease of use and security itself. Yeah.
So for yourself, you will do your best not to use free Wi-Fi outside.
Yeah.
Avoid at all costs.
Yes.
Wow.
If I go overseas, then I got no choice to use the free Wi-Fi. Then I'll use the VPN itself. But I'll try my best not to use so many data sensitive applications like my banking app, things like that. Yeah, unless I know that Wi-Fi is trustable, things like that.
Okay. Are there any trustable Wi-Fi ones? You know, like McDonald's or Starbucks, so they are not trustworthy as well to you?
Because people can actually duplicate the same Wi-Fi network itself. So if they are Wi-Fi, okay, here comes down to another thing is that when you're creating Evil Twin, right, you got two Wi-Fi of the same name, right? Yeah. So in terms of Wi-Fi, is going by the radio frequency, which is your, your wave, your how to say the frequency itself. So if your Wi-Fi, the frequency is stronger than the original Wi-Fi, then you can take over it. So you can just completely blanket it over. So no one knows there's the actual Wi-Fi over there. So your Wi-Fi actually take control. Yeah.
Wow.
So the frequency comes into play also.
I see. Wow. Okay lah. I try my best not to use public Wi-Fi then, because I don't want to pay for VPN.
I got like a very cool project. I mean, not a project, how to say. Last time I managed to heard some stories like actual testing itself. So we have like a team to actually go down to somewhere. I cannot disclose the thing, but then we tried this Evil Twin method where we connect this. We set up our own Wi-Fi, then we walk around. Yeah, then we managed to collect a lot of credentials.
Is it illegal?
Huh?
Is it illegal?
We are engaged to do it, so it's.
But let's say someone wants to do it, they don't have the license or whatever permission. It's not legal, right?
It is illegal to actually conduct this kind because if they breach anything of like unauthorized access, things like that, then you actually violate the Cybersecurity Act itself from Singapore.
Okay. At least it's illegal, but doesn't help much. Okay.
But it's very, very hard to track also this kind of thing.
Okay. Wow. Don't use public Wi-Fi. Okay lah. I think I can try lah. I can try. Okay. Okay, let's move on to crazy hacker stories that is well known from the community, the IT community. Are there any crazy hacker stories that a lot of people will talk about? Like very famous one, because I only know of examples like the Jeff Bezos one, his phone getting hacked. But I think by the Saudis, or is it Saudis or Israelis? One of them lah. They managed to hack into his phone. So, are there any other crazy stories, hacking stories?
I don't follow a lot, but then I read a few, like the recent one, the very recent. I mean, not very recent. It's like quite some time ago. The Uber one. The Uber got hacked itself.
The company lah.
Yeah. So.
What happened?
How to say? If I'm not wrong, their data got leaked itself. I read it quite some time ago. So this Uber story, right? How the whole attack flow is like, when someone wants to log in to like maybe the internet application, things like that, they need to go through a 2FA, like a two-factor authentication where you go into your phone, then click the approve button.
Yeah.
Right. So this attacker actually managed to retrieve like an employee account. So he tried to log in, but then because got this 2FA, he got blocked.
Yep.
But do you know how he bypassed it?
He got the phone number?
No. So this kind of thing is a soft token, so it actually linked to your phone. Your phone need to click the approve button.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if without clicking the approve button, you will not be able to go through it. So how the attacker
he got the actual phone, the hacker?
No.
Then how?
They gave it a name. It's called the 2FA fatigue. So they keep logging into the account, then they keep prompting the owner itself saying that you need to approve, like the approve page will come out on his phone. He keep doing it until the owner got lazy, then he pressed the approve button. That's how they got hacked.
Why?
Yeah, if I'm not wrong, I read it like that. It was damn funny.
Wait, so what
that's how the
happened?
whole thing
What got
goes.
leaked?
Hmm?
Like all
If
the
I'm not wrong,
company
some
info.
data, some internal stuff also.
So but this is not very like it's very anticlimactic lah. Like this one is like the person's fault lah. Like why do you even approve it in the first place, right?
Yeah, then there's also other things like the Solaris itself. So actually, right, all
Yeah.
these attacks, right, all comes down to either very weak password or lack of security awareness itself. So in terms of the whole thing, right, if I'm not wrong, we got the 3 piece itself inside the tag itself.
Yeah.
I don't think so. It is tag only. Wait, I forgot the whole thing.
That's okay.
Yeah, there's this thing called, if I'm not wrong, is the People, Process, and Technology, PPT,
Okay.
where
What's this?
the people is the weakest link always. So people are the one that is vulnerable and susceptible to like people attacking them, not physically attacking, but in terms of like we got one thing called social engineering where we can try to do human hacking, where we will try to build this rapport with you, things like that, until you have the trust in me. Then I will try to ask a little bit more sensitive information until the point where you release like everything. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this is why where people say the social engineering skill, right, is very very brutal itself. It's because it actually leaked out a lot of things. Then yeah, so human is always the weakest link. Like human also create weak password, things like that. So there's one quite huge thing. It's called the Solaris.
Yeah.
I'm not wrong. I'm not very sure whether you know or not.
I heard of it. I heard of Solaris, but I don't know the story.
Their source code got leaked because that they got a weak password.
They
Yeah,
use a lame password. Okay.
yeah. So that's one thing also that people will be able to get through. So everything to me, like how to say, all the major attacks, things like that, or it falls down to this very anticlimactic where maybe you're using a weak password, or maybe the 2FA they didn't check, then they just approve, things like that. Yeah.
Okay, I see. So don't ignore your basics, basically.
Yeah, and most important for all companies out there is like they need to do security awareness and keep training their staff itself in terms of every aspects. Like in terms if they actually holding a company phone, then in terms of logging in into their company account, which one they should do, things like that. This is why company actually yearly have this cybersecurity quiz, things like that, or cybersecurity awareness quiz
Yeah.
to ensure that they know their stuff. But a lot of people treat it as like, it's another task to do, and it's very hard, things like that. But when it comes down to really, if the thing happen, right, they don't know who to blame. Right?
Okay. True.
So
People just want to do their work, they who want to deal with all this security stuff.
yeah, because security is considered as troublesome, they will say. So it's very, very hard to balance it out also. Then also recently I saw this thing called I'm pretty sure you heard of the anonymous group.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they released a statement that they gonna do some big scale attacks on Israel or something like that.
Israel as in why there?
I'm not very sure the whole thing, but then they just dropped down. I saw it on, I think if I'm not wrong, on LinkedIn also.
They have a LinkedIn anonymous.
No, I mean not anonymous LinkedIn, but people repost it or something like that. Yeah. If I'm not wrong, I saw it.
Okay.
That they're preparing some cyber warfare.
So for them, it's more of a group of community with some vigilante kind of justice, and they want to hack into some companies. Is it something like that for them? Anonymous?
I guess I did some research on them, like maybe Google search, things like that. They do not have a leader by itself. So it's fully community based. I'm not very sure how they work. Yeah.
I see.
So
So let's talk about something that has never been hacked, the Bitcoin blockchain. Is it the reason why the blockchain has not been hacked is because, yeah, why? Well, actually, I don't know why. How is it not hacked? Can it be hacked?
If you talking about like hacking of blockchain technology, yes, it definitely can be hacked. But in terms of Bitcoin by itself, right, it's
Yeah.
a very, very huge chain already, and they got a lot of like individuals to mine itself.
Yeah.
So there's one thing is called a 51% attack on blockchain technology.
I heard of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not very sure you heard it or not.
I think you need
So
to have 51% of the Bitcoin so that if the quiz or the mine comes to you, then the people they all come together because you own the majority of the mining process,
yeah,
so you can come up together. But it's difficult because it's like gathering 51% of Bitcoin miners while anonymous. You don't know who to trace it to find their identity so that you all can work together because it's so difficult. So it's
yeah.
like the effort is too much. The blockchain has already been developed until so so widely circulated by around the world that it's really difficult to gather this 51% of
Yeah,
the
so
miners.
all this comes down to the base fundamental of blockchain technology itself. So blockchain by itself is like a database, you see. So this database is not being kept in a centralized server or things like that. It's being distributed to like maybe 10,000 people, or they call it as minders, where they will do a verification process. Like for example, this guy make a transaction, you need to go through like maybe X amount of minders to actually say that if this transaction is being approved or not.
Yep.
So if you got like maybe 51% of the minders itself, right, like you are owning the 51%, right, you could actually manipulate the whole thing. So for example, if I want to make a transaction, like I want to transfer 99 Bitcoin to this X person, since I own 51% of it, I guarantee confirm chop that this verification process will be approved. Yeah, this is why they got this 51% attack. For this kind of attack, it is mainly on smaller blockchains.
Yeah, we're still new.
Still new. Then other things would be maybe misconfiguration of like the data access, things like that. Maybe they got a very weak password again to access their blockchain. Yeah, then people might be able to manipulate it, things like that. Or they got like smart contracts. It's like a mutual code that is run on the blockchain to maybe conduct some particular actions, things like that. Then maybe there's some vulnerability on it. Then yeah, they might be able to exploit it. Those kind of So I would think it's quite susceptible
difficult.
to, but it's quite difficult also. That's why nowadays we got in terms of our side we got some like smart contract, things like that. I mean the cybersecurity domain have like smart contract, penetration testing, things like that, or vetting, things like that. Yeah, so that we can ensure that the smart contract is valid itself. But then my company haven't expanded to that particular realm yet. Yeah, mainly it's more towards like the Web3 people that is doing it, like Web3 companies. Yeah, there's quite a few now doing.
All right. Wow. Okay. So it will still be quite difficult to hack the Bitcoin blockchain. So speaking of what you are doing, the company that you are in, company N0H4TS, can you tell me what is N0H4TS and what is their functions and the purposes of the company?
So N0H4TS is still a community. It's not a company by itself. So for now it's like a non-profit organization. So we actually try to conduct like a cybersecurity conference for students, mid-career switchers, or create competition, cybersecurity competition. We try to make it more interactive, things like that. Not like you play one time then you go away, things like that. Yeah. So in terms of N0H4TS itself, right, it's like we want to gather a bunch of cybersecurity enthusiasts together and form this community where we can upskill together and teach each other or share knowledge. yeah, that's the whole main purpose of No-Hats itself. That's why we have the two main our biggest event itself,
Mm-hmm.
which is called StanCon,
Mm.
and another one is called CyberLake.
Mm.
So we have these three pillars that we always go to. Yeah, so the pillars is actually our community.
Mm-hmm.
Then still got the
Mission.
the community itself. Then after that, the
Ah,
CyberLake is also one pillar. Then
okay.
the third one is our training platform. So we are
Mm-hmm.
creating three pillars in this whole no-hats system.
Mm.
So this system is like when we inside the community, right? We will bond together, we will like upskill together, share knowledge, things like that. Then we can form friendship, connection, things like that. Then we will create small teams where
Yep.
they will decide to join our competition, which is Cyber League. Then they
Mm.
can test their actual like maybe their offensive skills or maybe their cybersecurity skills inside our competition. Then
Mm.
after the competition itself, they can actually view their statistics because our we got this framework that actually tracks their playing. I mean, like how much things that they solve, where their strong expertise is at. Like
Mm.
maybe, for example, they are strong in web hacking.
Mm.
Then yeah, then the statistics showing that they are strong in web hacking, or maybe they are weak in mobile penetration testing. Then they'll show it.
Mm.
Then from there, they'll jump all the way back to our training platform where they will actually learn and upskill at the same time. Yeah, then it goes back around again to the community, things like that. Then they can maybe form another new team, or maybe they can join the competition with the same team again the next year.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we continue, got some questions. The name No Hats, is it derived from the word? There's this white hat hacker. That's that term, which is I guess they hack for
Good
good
purpose.
reasons. Yeah,
Yeah,
for to just to check. So No Hats is for. Oh yeah, what's the significance? The name No Hats. I would think it's because of that. Is it because it's derived from that?
uh, frankly, okay, if I'm not wrong, the head is just creating it just for fun itself because there's like a lot of hats inside the cybersecurity realm.
Yeah.
So there's like the black hat, which is the
Yeah.
evil hacker. There's the gray hat where they hack for either good and bad depending on their own motivation. And there's
Yep.
the white hat, which is the ethical hacker where like for example me is the security consultant where people engage me to conduct a security testing on their application. So there's so
Yep.
many hats inside the cybersecurity realm. Then he decided to just name it as no hats.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh okay. Interesting name that you guys made up. It's a good name. Eh, so even for beginner, total beginner like myself, let's say I just want to be a casual, I don't know, hacker is the word, or maybe I'm just interested, but I don't have any background in IT whatsoever. Even I can join and learn a bit more.
Yes, definitely. So
Oh.
no hats we try to aim at those kind of people that is interested in IT security, like the cybersecurity realm itself. So
Mm.
you have or don't have experience in IT, but then you have this interest and this passion. You can always join us to actually to explore the IT security realm. So we have this conference. It's mainly for beginners and students. Yeah, it's called StanCon, which I mentioned just now. Yeah,
Mm.
so if you participate in this conference itself, right, you get to explore like various cybersecurity realm or niche realms that we will invite professional come down to give a talk to. Or then we
Mm.
also will set up like workshops, things like that to educate people how to maybe do a mobile penetration testing
Mhm.
or things like that. Yeah, so with or without knowledge is also all right. Then we also have like our blog, which is our Medium website. Our Medium
Yep.
website will be consistently updating, like every month once will be maybe a cybersecurity related stuff, like
Mm.
how to evade a network evasion, things like that. Then how
Mm.
to play CTF, like capture the flag. Yeah,
Mm.
so in terms of capture the flag, maybe I explain to you. Capture the flag is like the organizer will actually create a few vulnerable mobs that people can exploit So after they exploit, they might get this string called a flag. That's why we call it as capture a flag. So you need to break the box itself to get this string, which is called a flag. Yeah, so yeah, all this stuff will be placed on our Medium website where beginners or people who interested in IT can actually go view this kind of free resources. Yeah.
Seems very in-depth about that. You can capture the expertise, a wide variety of expertise in terms of the audience, whether they are complete beginners or people who just want to challenge themselves or even flex their own IT skills. Interesting. Quite interesting. Yeah. Is it difficult like this? Because there's the two types of audiences that you want to cater to. Or is it already, do you guys already have plans for these two communities? Like the difficult ones, you already have created the most difficult ones, and the easier ones, of course, they'll have the easier ones.
So in terms of our, we got the competition Cyber League, right? Yeah, that is more intermediate to advanced level. Then we got the more beginner friendly one, which is your StanCon. StanCon also have like cybersecurity competition, but it's a mini scale one, which is only like 1 day only. Normally it's 1 day. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, these two is catered to different like target audience, things like that. But then not saying that beginners cannot go try out the Cyber League itself. Beginners also can go try Cyber League itself to see their skills level at which area, things like that, so that our system can actually track their statistics to show that they are strong
where
at
they're
this
doing.
things like that. Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
And I think in terms of further planning, they might create like different tiers, especially created for maybe those very advanced people. Then they have like more harder challenge, like supreme extra hard challenge, things like that. Yeah. So
Wow.
those kind of thing we also have in plan, but I'm not very sure whether if it's gonna be executed or not. Yeah.
I see. Okay. So I would imagine that this whole endeavor that you're doing with No Heads, it's something very new when you first started. So mainly you have only IT, you have the technical expertise to know what you're teaching or how to plan. But in terms of the logistics itself or how you plan a event, how you market, how you do PR, I would think it's a totally new field for you. So how did you and your colleagues like even manage all of this? Like you discuss all the little details and all the challenges that you have to deal with. Like how did you react to it?
Oh, personally, for me, right, they are requested to be like the how to say in the like public relationship side and the marketing side itself, because it caught my attention that maybe a product that's doing well, but then sometimes the sales can be very very bad. But then if you have a good marketing strategy, things like that, the product can actually boost way further and it sells better. So it caught my attention on that. This kind of thing that I feel like if I can try out to gain some experience in terms of marketing, then yes, I would love to try it. That's why I applied for it. Then the challenges, it's a mess. I mean, I have a lot of challenges because firstly, my English is not the top notch one, so it's just basic, just average. Then in terms of marketing, it's totally new for me. So I need to do a lot of read up, things like that, like how to target this particular section of audience, or how do I craft out a marketing strategy, or what kind of content I need to post it out, things like that. So I did like a lot of research. Last time we don't have like ChatGPT to actually ask them like in terms of marketing, things like that, this kind of stuff. So I actually read a lot of like books and papers to actually understand how the marketing works and how can I approach it, things like that. Then in terms of being the lead, then I actually lead a very small team around around 4 people or so.
Okay.
In the marketing. side. So each of them have their own tasks. So some of it is like TikTok content creator, social media manager, then some administrative side in terms of like talking to people, things like that. Yeah. Then end up I also did some sponsorship, communication, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so this kind of thing I try to convey to them as clearly as possible. I try to set up like a meeting around 2 weeks, or maybe depending if they are free, then we'll have a short meeting to align everything together. So when aligning everything together, I will just talk about like what kind of things that I plan or I envision, because marketing is more on like the envision side, like how you envision this product to be, or this particular competition to be like. After you envision, then after you then create the smaller details like the concept of the whole thing, etc., etc. Yeah. So I will try to engage them via meetings. Then I'll try to communicate to them like how to do things like that. Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of the communication when you're doing PR, I forgot. There was something that I wanted to ask. It was. Well, I don't remember what I wanted to say. Was it difficult? I mean, in terms of IT stuff, I would think for someone who is a bit more logical in terms of the procedures that you do during IT, then having to communicate and verbalize it out in terms of your vision, I would think that it's a bit more difficult because you're so used to doing it practically on the computers, on the internet, that it's just second nature to you. Then suddenly you have to express it out in a very artistic form so that you can communicate your vision to your stakeholders lah. So was that a challenge for you?
Yes, it is
Yeah,
a
so
huge challenge for me.
so
But
it's like
not
I would think it's like you want to say, oh, I want to let's say I want to get a group of people so we can learn about they can learn about ID stuff. That's it, because that's the whole vision. But to the stakeholders, they'll be like, can you explain a bit more? Can you make it nicer? Things like that, so that they'll be more convinced about what you want to do, right? So was that the first few uh engagement that you have that you thought, okay, I need to step up in terms of explaining what I really want to instead of just simplifying with just one phrase?
Oh yes. I would say I had a few meeting that I just clearly state out like maybe, or just only a competition, or just get people come down. Yeah, normally we just think like that. But in terms of like the expressing all this, right, I have to consider like who are we targeting. Then we need to clearly state down every point, like the concept itself. Then who we targeting, the age group also matters. Then maybe their interest. So the target group interest in terms of this is definitely be cybersecurity. Then yeah, you can narrow down the interest itself, but then it might restrict your outreach, like the reach of the people.
Yeah.
Then yeah, all this I have to actually go read out on how to actually identify them, then actually to express it out. So because if without all this, right, the team doesn't really know like, get a lot of people, then they might not know what kind of ideas they need to come out, like engaging the audience. But what's the audience interest? What kind of questions, or maybe what kind of promotion or lucky draw that we need to create, things like that, to actually attract them in. Then with all this information to be expressed out, right, they also can create more. I mean, they can do the copywriting better, so they can actually attract them way faster also. Yeah.
I see. Wow, must not be easier to from doing a hands-on application for IT that's suddenly trying to voice out your vision and trying to be as detailed as possible also. So wow, good on you. Difficult, not easy, this one. Okay, let's move on to your life experiences. Talking about less on your background. If you're still on your background lah, but this is for your other parts of your life. your time during your university in SIT. So you studied this course, is it course or major information and communication technology, information security. So what are your highlights and lowlights during your tenure in SIT?
10 years.
Tenure is like
Oh,
your time lah, your time in
oh,
at
okay.
university.
Okay, I heard the phrase in terms of like maybe the fixed deposit, things like that.
Tenure, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the same definition.
Okay, yeah. So in my time in SIT, pretty enjoyable, I would say overall, because halfway through we hit COVID. Then after that, everyone will be study from home itself. Then all the online lectures, things like that. Yeah. But then at the same time, you also reduce your interaction with your friends. So that's the very downside of it. So the most highlight that I have, right, is beginning of the whole school, right? My first year, I got into SIT. Then after that, the first year also got this thing called Provost, which is maybe the director list itself.
Yeah.
In other words, yeah. So in the first year, I didn't manage to get the Provost list itself. So I told myself, in the future, I need to get it at least once. So I worked hard for it. Then I managed to get my Provost. Then finally, my name appeared there. That's my highlight of the whole university itself.
There's like a director's list, right? The top 10 now. Is it top 10 or top 5?
The Provost, if I'm not wrong, is a top 2%.
Top 2%,
Yeah.
okay.
But in that one, they constantly every year will then renew to find for that particular semester itself. Yeah.
Wow, top 2%. Out of how many? 100 one
I
batch.
think 100 plus, if I'm not
So
wrong.
you're second place. Out
Can
of
say,
correct, right? 100, 2% of 100 is second place, what? Yeah.
yeah,
Second
top
or first,
2%.
right?
Yeah.
Wow. But
So
if you get perfect GPA, how? Everyone,
5.
maybe, yeah, let's say 10 people get. So all of them will get?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
They only flag out the top 2, but I think to get 5 GPA is very, very hard. I think close to impossible, especially in my school. This is why it comes down to my next topic, where SIT itself, right, also one of my lowest point in university itself. So in SIT, right, 70% of it, right, is mostly project work, which is team-based itself. So it also must, depending on your capabilities and your luck to getting teammates itself. Sometimes you get like freeloader teammates, then you have to do their part also. Because in terms of the lecturer itself, they might not really care whether if the person do their work or not. At the end, you only can submit a peer evaluation. But then some, for example, as compared to other team, right? Other team got 5 people. Then your side maybe got 2 freeloaders. So it comes down to a 3-man team instead of 5-man team. But then you still need to deliver the same work out. So only at the end of the whole thing out, then you can rate that person didn't do anything. But then it's too late already. All the stress and all the things is still handled by this 3%. As compared to other people, might be a 5% work itself.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now it comes down to this itself. Then at the same time, SIT, the lecturer itself, like maybe each module, right? We have different modules. So each module have this module lead itself. They will create this module rubrics where, for example, this project itself, right, have these rubrics, this so-called marking scheme. The marking scheme isn't very strict itself. So it all depends on the marker itself. So for example, if the professor mark your work, it's all depending on their past experience. So maybe if this professor deem your work as not up to standard, but then maybe in the industry it is a standard itself, but then to him he might or might not know that it is a standard. Then he just based on his own experience say that it's not. Then they'll mark you down because of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I faced this kind of experience inside school. So I have this module where we need to create a software, a secure software, things like that. So we created this software, and my team itself actually created this. I mean, we talked to the lecturer, professor to see what kind of things to get A for us, because I'm a A.
Yeah.
I want to get A a lot
Yeah.
for my grades itself. So I don't like to see my grades flunk a lot. So that's why I always aim for the highest. So I always will try to seek to see how can I improve it to achieve that A, things like that. So I'll try to build towards that A. Then we also build this, how to say, this particular encryption, end-to-end encryption, where it's purely it's actually a library online where they code maybe there's different programming language. So there's like maybe Java to Java only, JavaScript to JavaScript. So they communicate between these two. But then we got a server that is using different, different coding language.
Okay.
Then we need to grab that library, then we need to dissect it. So we need to like slowly peel off the layers to actually find out how the mechanism works, things like that. Then we recreate it on our end. Yeah, so we did so much work, right? In terms of security side, right? That site is, I think, is one of the secure site that we have created.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, right, we didn't get very good grades for that. So I tried to ask the professor at the end of the whole module. So this professor, which is the module lead itself, I appealed for it. So the module lead told me that so the whole module got a practical test, paper test, and then project itself. The project stands around 70%. And then this project, right, the grading is team grade. So for example, if the professor give you a B for this grading, everyone is B. You get what I mean? So this comes down to the two differences of the paper test and the practical test, you see. Yeah, so if I score A for both, thankfully it doesn't really matter for my team grade. For example, my team grade get a B, overall maybe I get an A minus. Yeah, then if other people have the same two paper grading as me, then they will also get an A minus, you see. Yeah, so I actually try to scout the whole thing. One of my friend, he gotten a B minus for his first the first paper test. Yeah, then I think he did not complete one section of the practical test, but then overall come out, he gotten an A minus. Yeah, then for me itself, I gotten an A for my first practical, for the, how to say,
the paper or the
the paper, the first paper I gotten an A, but then my practical, right, I should be able to do everything, which I actually did lah. Then he said that because of one section I did not, so assuming that I did not get one section, but overall my outcome should be an A minus also. Because another person got a B minus for the first paper and then finish one section for the second, for the practical one. Then the project is team grade one. So A minus, thankfully I should have an A minus also. So based on this point, right, I try to ask the lecturer or the professor to explain further. So I asked him, if this person got this, like got a B plus, a B minus for the first paper, and then like a missing one segment, then the remaining is also team grade. Why he got A, then I got like B plus itself. Then he explained to us it. Then he said he needs some time to check. So I gave him some time to check. Then after he checked already, then he said, oh, it might not be your practical test. It might be your project, your third report might have some problem. Then I asked him, the third report is a team grade. How does it impact the differences in score itself?
Okay. So because project, it shouldn't deviate so much from your teammates one.
No, it shouldn't have any deviation because
no deviation at all.
Yeah, it's a team grade by itself.
Okay.
Yeah, so then when I asked him what's wrong with the report, then he said, oh, you forgot to add a certain section. But I asked him, it wasn't stated in the rubrics that this section is required. Then I told him, because that particular report is a penetration testing report, you see. Yeah, so the whole thing is we create a web application, then we'll conduct penetration testing with another team.
Okay.
So yeah, I conducted a penetration testing with another team. Then everything we scan, we jot down inside. So in terms of like the industry that I'm working at, right, most of the client doesn't really like to have false positive inside the report. False positive meaning that it being flagged out, but then it's actually not true. things like that, security, because we use some scanners, things like that. Yeah, it's a requirement inside the project itself to use all this. Then after that, he say, oh, because we did not add all these false positive test cases inside, that's why they flag us down by 1 grade. Then I told him that the rubrics doesn't have anything to state with me needing to put all these false positive inside the penetration testing report, and you also never say. And based on the previous penetration testing report, like the report that he suggested, offensive security, also doesn't have false positive inside. Then I told him that the industry doesn't really practice that much on putting false positive inside unless your client wants it. In this case, our clients, which is the school, didn't tell us anything about it, so we didn't know that we need to put in. Then he started playing with his experience. I still remember very clearly that he told me that Jerry, I got 5-year experience in the penetration testing field. Yeah, then he used that as a backing to give me his grade. I mean, the grading that he graded me. So I feel this kind of lecturer is the worst lecturer. I never see this kind of lecturer before. Then also I have 2 experiences. Another experiences is that I met this it's my one of my project also. It's my final project, thankfully. So I created this particular guide itself. So I asked, I mean, at the end, I think I scored a B+ for it. I didn't manage to get A, but then I heard other stories saying people just do a report like what they do every day inside the company, things like that. Because this final project can be anything. So I decided to create like a mobile penetration guide for like new people for my company itself. So in terms of technical, it should be there already. In terms of presentation of knowledge, it should be there already. Then after that, he marked me down on one thing which is the presentation skills. So I asked her, what kind of presentation skills you are looking at? Because when I heard other students, right, because students are very well interconnected, so we know each other grades that well. Yeah, so we also know like how they present and things like that. So I saw people presented with a video, they got A. Then people that doesn't present with a video, they got a B+. So I asked whether if this is a criteria or not. Then she said, oh no, video is not a criteria to it. Then I asked, okay, then show me an example of a very good presentation that she so-called say that is an A grade. And she couldn't bring out anything. Then I continue to ask her further, I probe further, but then she ended up telling me that, oh, I would like to state something out that she's not being biased in this kind of grading, things like that, but I didn't even brought up any biasness in this. So yeah, so I suspect that all this comes down to the lecturer experience itself. Different lecturer got different experience. This is why if any company that is hiring SIT student, right, they might get an A, but then as mentioned, different professors have different grading, so the grading system is not as accurate as possible. So if someone having a B+, they might be better than the A people, you see.
This kind of unpleasant experiences with professor.
And you cannot fight back on, because the moment you talk to them, things like that, right? Oh, I'll talk to the community. Then the community is their own people, you see. So they're discussing among themselves. There's no like third party to regulate the whole thing, you see. So anything they just call the shots. Then this thing, no, then they just ignore it. So I feel our GPA isn't the main priority in terms of university itself. Networking is more priority. Yeah, because you won't know if you face this kind of lecturer that love to bring out their 5-year experience in terms of inside the industry, things like that. Then they say, based on these 5 years, I grade you this. That's impossible, right? I mean, that's so unreasonable. You know, I say all this, right, because I met another lecturer. I met another professor, which is the very, very good one. I didn't, I scored around B+ for it also. Yeah, so
Okay.
I went to ask, like, because I would like to know my own mistake, so that I can actually identify it and then I can rectify it next time in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So I go prompt this professor saying that why my grading is B plus itself, then where's my mistake, things like that. So
Yep.
I told them all the points, things like that, that I should be like maybe getting an A, things like that. Yeah,
Mm.
but then the professor replied with a very, very good reply, which is one of the best professor that I met. Yeah, he replied every single detail why I am a B plus.
Mm.
Yeah, he gave all the reason, very, very logical reason. It's not like
Mm.
people telling me, oh, I got 5 year experience, that's why you're a B plus. No. Yeah, this one he pinpoint out all my mistakes. Like maybe
Mm.
for this particular section, I didn't add this keyword inside. So that's why
Mm.
this particular section have maybe negative marks or minus some marks away from it.
Mm.
Yeah. So he wrote like a freaking long essay, man. Like, oh, the email I read already. Then I
Mm.
know this kind of professor is very into their teaching itself. So they care for their students, not like the professor that just come in to take some money, then
Mm.
just say, oh, my experience tell me you are a B plus, means you are a B plus. It doesn't give you like a detailed form. But sometimes it's very, very hard to give a very, very detailed form
Mm.
like of explanation. I get that, but then at least put some effort rather than telling the student, oh, you are B plus because I got 5 years experience, and then
Mm.
not telling me that not inside the rubrics or things like that, saying that, oh, you forgot to add this in, things like that. But it's not a requirement. If it's a requirement, you should have stated it out from the start itself. You see,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they didn't do anything on that. Yeah, so
Mm.
I feel this kind of professor is just coming in to take some money to just go on with their life. It's not trying to help to build the next generation of like students or maybe the next generation of like cyber defenders, things like that. It's not. And
Mm.
their course materials, right, are mostly outdated. And they just reuse from their predecessors, saying their predecessor passed them the learning materials. Then they might
Mm.
just maybe change one or two words like their name.
Mm.
Yeah,
I see.
then they
Huh.
reteach again. They didn't update the thing at all sometimes. They just continue to teach.
Mm. I think
So
something that I want to point out is the something that is quite good that I think all students should have is the the propensity, not propensity, the ability to ask how well or how can you improve when after you got your grade, or maybe after you done well or didn't done well in your tests or your projects, to ask your professors or your lecturers whether how you can improve, how you can do better in the future so you won't make the same mistakes. And I think I think it's understandable for how why you feel like the professor wasn't giving you a very sincere answer, because as a student you want to know how you can improve. And then if the professor doesn't give a very concerted effort to at least try to give you a response, then it feels like I how can I improve then? You can't improve, right? If the school, going to school is about learning and how you can improve yourself. So next time you don't make the same mistakes. So it's justifiable, I think, what you are feeling. You're feeling like I I'm asking how I can improve, and you're telling me about how you have 5 years experience. Um that's why you don't deserve a certain grade. So this kind, right? Are you able to rate the professors, or is it circulated among your peers? Say, oh, this prof not good, or this prof very
mm,
good.
normally we will have this module feedback session.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But this module feedback session is also towards the module lead so that they can feedback on themselves. So
Mm,
sometimes because if I bring this up right in the module feedback, right, it's still going towards them. They might just, oh, okay, never mind.
mm,
So it doesn't have like a third party essence to actually regulate the whole thing, you see.
mm.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, it's unfortunate lah. Though I hope you can keep the same spirit that you have. in terms of self-improvement. I think that's very good. Not a lot of people have that. They just want to have the A grade and then I'm not going to improve myself or something like that, because they're so all just GPA oriented. They don't think about actually learning. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I feel that professors should anticipate these kind of questions. Like students want to improve themselves, then they should be more willing to accept this kind of thing, rather than maybe student ask them something that they know, then they reply. Not this kind of very tough question like how can I improve, or maybe where did I do wrong, things like that. Because this kind of questions, right, is very very tedious to answer. Then some professor just say maybe I don't want to answer, then give a very vague answer to reply towards it, just to brush it off.
yeah, school life not easy.
Yeah.
How's the dating life?
Eh, no.
What's the dating life in SIT?
uh, I don't date in SIT because how to say
Okay.
in terms of schoolwork, right? Immediately I have to do work outside. I'm doing full-time studies and part-time work, so I don't really have much time to actually social around. You see, yeah. So every time after school, I have to chunk some. I need to complete some projects or maybe the milestones of the projects itself. Then after I have to go to work by itself. But luckily, my work is remote, so it's alright. Then in terms of school holiday or term break, I'm
Yep.
required to go back to work as a full time itself.
Mm,
Yeah, so I'll be deployed to like local projects or maybe on site to conduct penetration testing or some source code review, things like that.
wow, busy
Yeah.
life, no time for love life. So speaking of your job and what you're doing, what are your plans for the future?
Oh, for me personally, I love to gain knowledge itself. So as a lot of people saying that knowledge is power, so I would like to gain this kind of knowledge around. Then I would like to share with a lot of people also towards the community, things like that. This is why I take the initiative to create the N0H4TS Medium page itself. Yeah, so that I can have a platform for me to actually share this kind of knowledge to people. So, and also in terms of cybersecurity, right, if you keep it to yourself, right, the whole community will not grow, you see. And if the community grow means that you have different angle on one particular software or one particular technology itself. So people have different ways to maybe to try to penetrate the software, things like that. Then you can learn from one and another. So see how creative they are or how creative I am. Yeah, from there, then we can learn the tips and tricks to actually conduct this kind of thing. Yeah, so if you keep everything to yourself, then no one learns at all. Only you learn, but then you might not be able to push yourself to the another level because everyone have a limit, you see. Yeah, so breaking the limit is requires everyone come together to actually to maybe explore the whole realm together, like the whole cybersecurity realm.
Now that you mention it, all of the things that you're learning, it might be a good foundation for you to be a professor in the future in SIT, so you can do what is wrong by you by being a professor there in the future.
Yeah, I was thinking about teaching out my knowledge, things like that, because in terms of teaching, right, it's also another form of sharing knowledge also. Yeah, so I considering of opening up a YouTube channel, my own personal one, to teach out like maybe basic web penetration testing, basic mobile penetration testing, or how to conduct a source code review, or maybe in terms of like the management side, like how the whole penetration scope works, maybe from the start to the end, from client communication all the way to post service communication, things like that. Yeah, I was thinking to create this kind of content to go out to the public so that everyone actually learns.
Good. That's
Yeah,
great. That's great.
then maybe when I retire, I could try to become a professor, and maybe of course a good professor that actually teach them the correct stuff one, and will actually reply to them in terms of like how well they did and maybe what kind of wrong they can, what kind of area that they are weak in and how they can improve these things like that. Yeah, rather than having to brush it off just to get the money.
So I will look forward for your new YouTube channel and being a potential professor in the future then. Okay, before you become a professor in the future, what would you advise or what advice would you give to someone who wants to study information security?
Mm. In terms of that, right, I would suggest them to actually try to network around with the cybersecurity community itself
Hmm.
and to actually explore like the new technologies in terms of cybersecurity. Yeah,
Yep.
and they'll keep themselves updated in terms of the technology side. And then in terms of networking, then you can actually meet more new people, then you can discuss and communicate and learn from them also.
Mm.
The base fundamental knowledge that the IT security people that need to know is like all the basic coding, like maybe Python scripting, things like that. Yeah, then they also need to know like how the whole maybe the website communicate with the server or what kind of infrastructure, things like that. So this kind of thing it should be because university is another step up from like polytechnics, things like that.
Yep.
So in polytechnics, you have the foundation already. So when you come to university, right, you cannot possibly ask the lecturer teach you from the scratch again, like maybe from the start ABC, then I'll go on and go forth. So in uni, the pace will be slightly faster. So you need to actually try to keep it up and understand it better. So if like for guys that went to NS, it's best for them to go for a refresher course. I mean to refresh themselves, like reading their past polytechnic notes, things like that, to actually prep themselves for the uni. So that when they go in, they will not be like so
Lost.
so lost.
Okay. Or they can go to No Hats and find a community so they have a bunch of people to practice whatever they
Yes.
learn.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay, last few questions. What aspects of life do you see gives you hope about the future?
Wow. Hmm. In terms of like the aspect will be like how the cybersecurity community grows itself or the whole industry
Oh,
grow.
that can be one as well. Do you see
Yeah.
that as something that gives you hope?
Yes. In terms of
So,
the future, yeah, I will love to see that grow way further, or maybe outgrown like the knowledge that maybe I have or something like that. So in terms of like the knowledge, right, one person only have a little bit knowledge, so everyone comes together, it will be a lot, and slowly everyone will then grow together. So I would like to see this kind of growing. That's why I joined No Hats by itself to
oh,
see this
s-
happen.
mm.
Yeah.
So,
Then sorry.
oh, you continue.
Oh no, I continue to another thing already. Yeah, you
Oh,
got a question on that?
no, it's just I was just thinking. So to build a community, to teach new people who are interested in the field and growing the community. Yeah.
Mm, yeah.
Okay. Okay. One last lame question. Do you believe in ghosts?
Ghosts.
Yeah.
Uh, uh,
You got any experience?
no, I do not have any experience, but then I do believe that this kind of things exist. Spirits, ghosts will exist.
Oh, okay. So do
Yeah.
you think the ghosts will know how to? Oh yeah, can ghosts infiltrate a computer or not? You think? And then like someone possess the computer. Is it possible? You think?
I don't think so it's possible, but I think
No.
it's possible for the ghost to infiltrate the person itself, to infiltrate the system.
But cannot. I mean, in some way, when you see some, I don't know, movies or what, they'll somehow interfere with the system one, right? Like they'll
Oh,
make it like the
the radio
lights go blinking.
frequency.
Yeah, something like that. So I would think in some way the ghost might interfere, then make sure your internet don't work. So they torture you, don't cannot use the internet. Okay, okay. So but Also, you do believe?
Yeah, I
Okay,
do
that's
believe.
good.
Yeah, because
Okay.
my family quite religious, religious. Yeah, those are Buddhists. So they will
Mm.
try to not to kill any insect or any animal.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
especially my mom. Yeah,
Mm. Okay.
so they also quite believe in this kind of ghost stuff. But for me, I
Mm.
just believe to a certain extent. Like if
Mm.
I don't come and disturb you, you don't come and disturb me. This kind of things.
That's
Yeah,
good. Good
or
answer.
maybe those kind of superstitious where you put a chopstick on the rice
The
bowl.
rice.
Yeah. This kind of thing I will not go play with it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Uh, Jerry, that's all the
Yes.
questions I have today. Thank you so much. Well, we went for almost 1 hour 50 minutes. That's very long. That's a very long. I think that's the longest podcast I have so far. So thank you,
No worries.
Jerry, for sharing all your stories and your experiences as a cybersecurity consultant. So I'll see you next time then.
All right.
All right. Hey, bye bye.
Bye.